Welcome back, guys. Mike Burrows from StanceWorks here, and today we are working on the Ferrari once again. There's a bunch of stuff that I'd like to do to get started, like mounting the engine, ripping the interior out, and removing the factory brakes and suspension, but there's several reasons why I can't do any of those yet. So I'm kind of excited to say we're gonna start today with an angle grinder. We're gonna throw sparks on the Ferrari and cut material out from under the hood. Now, not a ton of it. I have to kind of be careful. I have to know what I'm doing, what I'm cutting out, and not make any irreversible changes. But that spare tire well definitely needs to come out. So let's wrap the car up, make sure we're not going to throw any sparks on the paint, and get after it. So the plastic is wrapped up, and I'm gonna give you guys the first tip in at least a little bit now. And that is, never set your tape down on the side. My buddy Sean Griffin, who is an incredibly talented painter, talented composites guy, pretty much talented at everything that he does, it seems, let me in on this secret. And it's a habit I am not good at yet. If you watch the video back, you'll see I set this down on the ground. However, it's at least kind of a helpful habit to start with. The side of this tape is sticky. There is a small amount of adhesive on it, and this will pick up metal, it can pick up rocks, dirt, dust, all that stuff. And one, it'll ruin the tape, and two, it can transfer to stuff that you're taping to, especially if you're gonna tape to something like your paint and bodywork that you don't wanna scratch. So, while it's a really tough habit to break, learn this one with me, find a place to hang it or balance it up on end. Don't set your tape down flat, you'll ruin it. All right, so back over here at the car, I wanna show you guys what I'm planning on cutting out today. So this material here, I knocked on it last time. This is part of what held up the original spare tire. And as I'm hoping you can tell, it's pretty stout. I'm not saying that this thing is gonna weigh 10 pounds or anything. It's mostly needs to come out because it's in the way. However, this stuff does add up. This is weight we don't need in here. On top of this is this guy here too. And this is kind of the other portion of the mount. There's a threaded piece that comes down and threads into this that holds your spare tire down. This also provides some structure to hold the spare tire up, holds that whole basket that was here. And so this piece can come off as well. We don't need it. Theoretically, we could cut it off all the way down here at the base. However, some of this structure, if you can get in here and peek at it, braces back here, gives this some added stuff. So I'm not gonna do that quite yet. If I cut that out, I wanna put something else back in place. So we're gonna start with just cutting the top off. It gives us a bit more room. This is protruding up into the engine bay, which we don't need. So let's get this cut out first, then we'll cut that guy off and kind of get a better lay of the land. All right, last but not least, before I dive into this thing and just let you guys figure out what's going on, I figured I'd show you what tools I'm using. Maybe that's gonna be helpful. I love these DeWalt angle grinders. I have had quite a few of them. They do not last forever, but I wanna say these ones are like $100. And if you're fabricating every day, it's still gonna last you a couple years before it smokes out and blows itself up. I've had a bunch of other ones. I've got a bunch of other ones. I keep coming back to these. I like the ones with the thumb switch on the side. They also do have one with a paddle on the front that I know Riley likes a lot more than this version. I've never really found myself comfortable using those ones. I also find that they're a bit bigger, and I don't have the biggest hands in the world. So these, I've probably had, I don't know, 5 or 6 of them at this point. I've got 2 of them now. They're great. Can't go wrong with them. You need to have one of these in your tool collection if you're gonna build anything. Doesn't matter what it is, buy one of these. Flap wheels, cutoff wheels, they're all useful. If we need to, depending on clearance, we may break out a die grinder. Now this has a sanding drum on it. I didn't swap it out because I don't even know if I'm gonna use it yet. However, you can put tiny little cutoff wheels on these and use them to get into tight spaces. That might be helpful. Last but not least, you can clean the material up in a bunch of different ways. The easiest one's probably gonna be with a flap wheel on an angle grinder. But once we cut this stuff down, I might wanna use a finger file to kind of help smooth it out. And if you don't have one of these, I'm not gonna say it's worth it. It depends on how much fabrication you do. But if you do any level of fabrication that requires kind of grinding and sanding, this is a tool to have in the arsenal. They're great. The belts are expensive, but these things chew through everything. They are awesome. All right, with that said, let's go to cutting. Man, are these safety glasses styling or what? So, materials cut out, like I said, it's not a ton. We're not going crazy right now. It's probably only a few pounds worth, but it's stuff that I know needs to come out at the moment. So now let's throw the camera in the engine bay. I'll show you what I'm really thinking, what I'm looking at. Already, I feel like it has so much more room without that tire carrier mount in here. Now, I cleaned down some of the welds where it was attached. I didn't grind them all the way down. If I leave this structure in here, I will do that. I'm gonna clean this up, make it look better. With that said, I may cut this structure out and rebuild it myself, depending on where I want material to actually be, and because I think I can make something just as strong, but a bit lighter than this. However, I very well may leave it. This is just, it works as it is, it's low profile, and it's gonna offer some great support for kind of under tray splitter pieces. Up here, I cut this guy off flat. Now, this mount is kind of tiered. I don't know if you can really tell. It steps down, kind of drops down here on each side. I ground the top flat, and I kind of took some of this down where it was jagged where I had cut it. At some point, I may come in with that finger file and buzz this totally flat, depending on what I want to do here. I may wind up cutting this off, but I knew I'd at least make this flat so I can potentially use it as support. This may be a really nice pedestal mount for something, holding the back of a radiator or something like that. It really is a pretty useful piece of structure, so I'm not keen on cutting it completely off yet. But as you can see, way more room up in the front. We definitely have room for the two big fluid coolers we're gonna need to put up here. So with these two pieces cut out, let's talk weight. This isn't very much, it's like 3 pounds. But everything else that's come out of the car so far has really begun to add up. Let me throw some numbers on screen so we can actually visualize this. Here's the cumulative list of everything that I've pulled out of the car so far. Obviously the engine is heavy at 611 pounds, but there's a handful of other things that weigh in too. The muffler and exhaust pipes are 60 pounds, while the exhaust manifolds are another 38. The front and rear bumpers together are over 80 pounds, and the battery is 39. The grand total for weight loss so far is 1,148.3 pounds, or 520 kilograms for the rest of the world. There are a few things that I haven't put into the totals, but this gets us pretty close. So where do we go from here? Well, obviously a ton of components do have to go back into the car. An engine, a transmission, a cooling system, a turbo system. This car isn't just all weight loss. There's stuff that's got to go back in. So we got to decide how much of it goes back. And obviously we're going to be replacing a lot of components with lighter counterparts. For example, our 39-pound lead acid car battery is going to be replaced with a very lightweight lithium one. Our brass radiator will be replaced with an aluminum one. Things like this will cumulatively bring the weight of the car down. There's other aspects for weight loss too. We talked about the rear hatch in a previous episode, the engine cover. It's 62 pounds of steel. And I have found a company in Europe that builds them out of carbon fiber, and it looks like they weigh right around 16 pounds. So that's a considerable weight loss, and it's high up in the car. That's gonna be good for us too. I really am putting a focus on trimming weight out of this car without kind of destroying it, so to speak, ruining the experience. I want something that, while it is a race car, is something I can drive on the street with some level of comfort and reliability and safety too. We can't just hack this car to pieces. I know a lot of people are worried about taking it to that extent, but worry not. We're gonna be responsible here. Another aspect of weight loss is going to come from the brakes and suspension. I saw one user on a specific Ferrari forum say that he found a nearly 70-pound weight difference from changing to aluminum calipers, two-piece rotors with aluminum hats, and to aluminum-bodied coilovers. And so I'm hoping we're gonna benefit in the same ways when we make the same changes. And we will find out exactly what that weight difference is because we are gonna weigh everything. In my case, the first thing to do is to remove the hard line that's attached to the back of the brake caliper. I can't get to the bolts without removing it first. If you're working on brake lines and you don't have line wrenches, you need to take your time because you can and will strip the fittings if you're not careful. You also need to be careful with brake fluid because if it gets on anything that's painted, it'll eat the paint right off of it. With that line out of the way, there's two bolts that are passing through the back of the caliper that hold it to the upright. There's also two bolts that hold the rotor to the hub. With all four of those out, I'm able to remove the caliper and then tap the rotor off with a mallet. All four calipers, all four rotors, and the front brake shields are officially off, and I weighed them. And it's a pretty decent chunk of weight. We're talking about just shy of 100 pounds, 98 pounds if you're keeping track, of weight that I've just removed. Now, keep in mind, a lot does have to go back on. We've got to put a whole brake setup back on this thing. However, if there is the chance that we find 70 pounds between a new brake setup and new coilovers, that'd be a pretty significant gain because a lot of that weight is unsprung weight. And that's gonna drastically affect the dynamics of the car, suspension tuning, and ride quality too, which while on track might not be the most important thing, I do wanna drive this car on the street. I am excited to say that the engine from the Ferrari is officially up on Bring a Trailer as an auction. It went live about 10 minutes ago. And if you guys at home wanna keep track, follow along, see what this thing goes for, I'm eager to find out too. I have no idea. Leave some comments, show some support, and if you wanna buy this thing, now's your chance. It's up for auction. Next on the list is pulling the shocks and springs from the car, since we're gonna be replacing those with coilovers. To do that, it means we gotta build a dolly, and I'm gonna save that for the next episode, so you know what's coming up, and I will catch you guys then. Thank you guys as always for watching, for liking, subscribing, commenting. I appreciate the support. I will catch you in the next episode later this week.